There's a world of difference between leading and ruling. Some men lead, like Jesus did, shepherding, caring for, exhibiting compassion, expressing compassion towards, setting an example, going ahead, doing what needs to be done. That's leadership. Others simply rule, you see. Others rule. Some captains go down with their ships. That's a leader. Others command that space be made for them on the rescue boats. That's ruling. Some generals lead the charge into battle. That's leadership. Others simply give orders from a well-protected bunker. That's ruling. Brothers, which type of man are you? Do you affirm that you're the man of the house? You make the decisions. What you say goes or else? Or are you a shepherd leader? Are you leading? Are you going ahead of the flock as the good shepherd has? I believe there's a world of difference between those two. And particularly in conservative, Bible-believing churches where we do affirm the distinctions between men and women and affirm that men need to be leaders and that wives need to submit, we've often gotten this wrong. And we've said, men, rule. With an iron fist if necessary, but rule. I think there's a problem with that. Most of you will remember the phase when those bracelets were popular, the WWJD bracelets. What would Jesus do? And I understand that that's not always the best question to ask. Sometimes, in fact, many times there are things that Jesus did that we cannot and even should not do. But I think very often it's a good question. It's a good question. What would Jesus do? Maybe better yet, what did Jesus do? What do we see Jesus doing as a leader? Because, brothers, when we turn to the Scriptures, we don't merely find principles about how to be a good husband. We don't merely find rules. We don't merely find precepts that tell us that we're to lead. Instead, when we open up the Bible, and I hope chiefly when we open up the Bible, we don't see principles, we see a person. And the person that we see is Jesus Christ on every page of Scripture. And that person, Jesus Christ, teaches us how to lay down our lives for our wives. You see, we can get distracted by principles. Principles are important. Principles help shape our lives. But we can get distracted by them. We can take a principle and extract it from real life. And we see, well, men, you need to be leaders in your homes. And we take that principle and we translate that, abstracting it from the person of Christ, and say, well, then what I say in the home goes. When I say jump, I want everyone to ask how high. But what we actually read about the prototypical husband, which of course is Jesus Christ, our groom, our husband, the husband of the church, what we actually see, what we actually read about, the prototypical husband in Scripture is him leading through service. Him leading through service. In fact, maybe we're not struck by this anymore. We've read the Bible so many times. We've read the Gospels so many times. But what actually happens is you see Jesus humbling himself so low that hardly anyone even recognizes that he's a king. He's the King of Kings. He's the Lord of Lords. And yet he comes to this earth to redeem us and to set a pattern for a piety, and no one even can tell he's a king. People call him a king, but they're making fun of him because he's lowly, riding on a donkey. His arms are spread, nailed to a cross. He's washing feet. He's serving meals. He's comforting the fearful. He sacrifices his will for the life of his bride. If you're saved by grace, if you're part of God's family, it's only because Jesus Christ loved you through the kind of leadership by which he forfeited his life. That's leadership. And so, brothers, we need to ask ourselves, how am I leading?